Welcome back to the Gruber Companies and the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner, and good morning.
And brace yourself. We have a lot of cool topics today.
Yes, we do.
We got a cord humming here. All right, I'm going to move mine. I'm not near anything. So the picture behind us, again, artificial intelligence. It is a studio in an otherworldly setting was the prompt. And I'm just amazed at what it always comes up with. You know, beautiful colors, simplistic, uncluttered, and I hope you're enjoying it. And those of you on Instagram, we realize that you don't see our backdrops yet, and we're feverishly working on increasing the production quality to give you a background as well.
Love the blues, and although it's hard to see this right now because your head and my head both block it, it's a picture of a world, and then behind that picture is more of the arc of a world that's closer up.
Looks like we've got Earth in the background too then.
Yeah, looks really good. You know, we've got a couple of good things to start up, and one of the things I thought we could talk about has been bubbling up for a couple of weeks, and it has to do with the EV marketplace, and car dealers are suddenly getting lots of electric vehicles, and they're starting to complain that they can't sell everything that they're getting.
Yeah, that's been a common thread we've been hearing.
You know, I found a good article about this on Insider, and they said that EVs are running out of customers, or EV dealerships basically are running out of customers. And the report says that dealers are turning away electric vehicle deliveries from the manufacturers.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah, and what's happening is that they say that the demand is cooling, and the manufacturers are trying to continue to force feed them with more electric vehicles than they can take or than that they want to take. And so it appears that two things are happening at once. Because if you think about it, as little as 6 months ago, there are no cars, there's no EVs, the demand is outstripping supply. Well, that's first, manufacturers are ramping up production now, so there's more supply. The chip shortage that has been said would ease sometime in 2023 or 2024 is starting to ease. Supply chain issues are starting to ease. And so manufacturers that want to make these hundreds of thousands of cars are able to ramp up and start making their hundreds of thousands of cars. At the same time, demand does seem to be softening a little bit. It appears that the early adopter EV market is getting saturated. Early adopters, most of the analysts that are out in the press and the smart people, not like me, the experts that tap into the marketplace say that about 7% of a marketplace is going to be an early adopter. Well, EV sales so far in 2023 are running around 8% of total sales for all vehicles. So that means that the EV sales are getting close to that tipping point, as it were, and the demand is softening just a little bit. So, my take, I have three problems per se that I think I see. First, dealers. It's not that the dealers are good or bad, not that they're friendly toward EVs necessarily, or that they're unfriendly toward EVs. It's that they don't like change.
Okay, I was wondering where you're going with that. That makes sense.
Most dealers are in this big middle where they're skeptical about the viability of EVs, and they just feel like these EVs are being pushed down our throat. There are a few dealers that are very EV friendly, and they're pushing EVs and they're selling EVs. There are many more dealers that are not EV friendly. They consider EVs to equate to Teslas, which is anti-dealer and direct-to-consumer and stuff like that.
Right.
And so they don't push EVs, and they feel like that these vehicles are being foisted upon them. They're not necessarily sold themselves on the concept or on the vehicles. And I consider the dealership networks overall to be part of the problem, not part of the solution here. The second problem, of course, is price. In the early 1900s, electric vehicles represented a significant portion of all cars sold. In fact, it was pretty close to 50-50. Gas-powered vehicles were 50, electric vehicles were 50. The tipping point toward gas vehicles was not infrastructure, by the way. There were no more gas stations around at the time than there were electric charging stations, and there wasn't much electricity around.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is Henry Ford came out with the Model T. It was a car that was as good as any electric vehicle out there, although not quite as easy to drive, but it only cost 1/3 the price.
Okay, strong motivator. Yeah.
It was a strong motivator. In the marketplace in general, there are a couple of main ways that you drive demand. Either you have something that is equal to what's out in the marketplace in terms of features and is a lower price, like Ford did with the Model T, or you come up with a superior product at the same price. In my opinion, EVs are a superior product. We've seen that with far fewer parts, a simpler design. We've heard plenty of anecdotes of electric vehicles going hundreds of thousands of miles. I believe they're a superior product.
And another dealer annoyance, less service.
Oh yeah, far less service for them. So in general, they're going to be cheaper for the
For the owner.
total cost of ownership for the owners. But their prices haven't kept pace. Ford promises a $40,000 pickup truck that's EV. When they come out with it, it's a $60,000 pickup truck.
And then the dealers mark it up another 30-40%.
Exactly. And so this pickup truck that was supposed to be $39,000 is more like $79,000 to $99,000, and they go up from there.
Yeah.
No wonder there's no adoption. At some point, I have faith in the industry because Tesla has really kind of been the trailblazer here too. Here in 2023, Tesla is starting to drop prices to an area where their Model 3 and their Model Y are price competitive with the similar ICE vehicles, the similar crossover SUV, the similar small four-door sedan. And so as a result, you now have a superior product that's approaching the same price point. Is there any wonder why is Tesla selling hundreds of thousands of cars while everyone else is selling only thousands or in some cases tens of thousands? So I have faith in the industry. I do think they're going to figure it out. Some of the things that we're going to talk about later, I think will reinforce that faith. But those are two of the problems that I happen to see that's going on. And at some point, there's going to be a tipping point. We've got, as we were talking about on Tuesday, a lot of government intervention pushing this forward. And at some point, we're going to see that superior product at the same price or maybe even a slightly lower price than ICE vehicles. And then the mainstream marketplace, the other 93%, will start to buy in. And then you're going to see demand kick off and everything will get better again.
Well, great analysis. Thank you, Mark. We've got a bunch of YouTube audience and various other platforms chiming in now. So let's take care of some of those. YouTube,
Yes.
Nada Gas says, come on, EVs running out of customers. The EV sales keep going up.
I agree. I think there's going to be a pause. But when I say pause, I think it's more of a plateau, a leveling out of the customer base.
For those of you also interested, the choices and the number of options available today are unprecedented, and they'll continue to go exponential. There's a good article in the latest Road and Track magazine online, and they list future electric vehicles coming in 2023 through 2028. And I began to read this, and you know what? I couldn't get through it all this morning. The list just continues and grows. Pictures of the cars, great articles on the cars, and some of them you're already familiar with, like the Corvette that's coming out, for example, the Polestar 4 and 5 and 6. But it's a good read for those of you interested. The range of choices are just multiplying exponentially.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many good models coming out. Richard Flenke from YouTube has joined us as well. He says they caught all the EV big fish. Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. Our or my thought on that is the people that were willing to pay into six figures for a car probably were attracted to the first Tesla Model S's. The Tesla Model S P100D, for example, that was a $170,000 car in its day. Of course, it's come down way since then. Lucid is still struggling with trying to get it down to the price levels where they can compete with the higher end Tesla cars.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. I think that the people that were willing to spend that much on cars, there's been some saturation, and some of those have been flushed out.
Wait, Pete, did you say the P100D ludicrous?
Yes.
It's 170,000.
Yeah, back in the day.
Isn't that what we're using your parts car over there for now?
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about that.
Oh, man.
That was a P90D ludicrous, but yeah, that was an expensive car in its day, too.
A CDN user has a couple of really great comments here.
Mm-hmm.
First, he says, I'm still waiting for an Ioniq 5 as my local dealerships are sold out.
Okay.
So Hyundai makes that. It's a Motor Trend car of the year from a year ago. It's a great little car. And then he says, I suspect it may be that the dealerships that don't want to sell them, because every time I go, they try to direct me back into stock gas vehicles.
And that's exactly what Elon Musk said a decade ago when he said, I'm not going to sell my cars through existing car dealerships because my customers that are going to show up there will be directed back into ICE vehicles because that's what these salespeople feel comfortable with. That's the language they speak. And I'm not sure they're willing to train themselves on the advantages of EVs.
And that is exactly my point as well about dealerships being the problem more than the solution in this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Facebook, Aaron Cook says, LOL, it's trash. They want $70K for a $10,000 car. Give me a break. They're cheap to make.
Aaron, I do think that there's some corporate greed as part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Ford, I'm going to hold up as a shining example here with the F-150 Lightning. They got 150,000 reservations just like that.
Yeah.
It went so fast. And so what did they do? They focused on the higher end cars, the $90,000 plus Pro line, the Lariat line, which was going to be $80,000 plus. They made very few of the the quote unquote Pro line, which was going to be their $39,000 vehicle, and even then they raised it up to $59,000.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get all of their R&D spend back in just a few cars.
Yeah, not possible.
No, it's not. So they're going to be cheaper to make. We were talking again on Tuesday about or just yesterday, I guess, about some of the government subsidies that are going to the EV makers. And some of these subsidies are pretty significant, but they are based on sales. They're not based on manufacturing.
Yeah. Niles is joining us with the Bion Danish Genome Institute. Thank you, and welcome, Niles. He says, good morning. Could also be that all demand is less because, one, people owe more on the old cars than what the new ones cost, and two, banks are tightening loans. Now, Niles is in Denmark, by the way, so he may have the European perspective here. And then the third point he makes is he says higher EV repair costs are probably becoming more well known. And, what everybody is scared of course, is that battery replacement in a Tesla when you've got a $22,000 problem suddenly for a car that may be worth, only $30,000 to $35,000. And that can be pretty painful. Again, as we've said many times, in an ICE vehicle, you spread some of those high, expensive item costs around a bit. You've got an engine, you got a transmission, your fuel systems. And in an EV, you've got that drivetrain, and that battery is the biggest expense in that car.
Yeah.
But we think temporarily, as technology continues to improve, the batteries begin to get smaller and more efficient, which will continue because of the demand currently. Remember, demand drives innovation.
Right.
So we think that this problem will be solved eventually, but it's definitely a part of the problem right now.
I've got a good friend that he likes to lease his cars. He likes cars. when I say likes cars, I'll go when I see him. It seems like every 5 or 6 months, he's got a new car.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm turning in my, I think he's been through 4 Honda CRVs in the last 5 years or something like that.
Right.
Always getting the newest model, always getting the quote unquote deal. And I've asked him about electric vehicles, and he's just uncomfortable. He just doesn't know enough about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he sees the higher price point, he doesn't really care about the features because he's all about that monthly payment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so now in a rising interest rate environment that we have here in the U.S., coupled with the unfamiliarity of what an electric vehicle can do, he's just not convinced yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think he will be, sooner rather than later as we continue to talk.
They all will be eventually, yes.
Yeah.
YouTube, C&D user says, good point, Bayan. And then Instagram, we've got some thumbs up from Ashag's. I can't pronounce that.
Yeah.
I'm going to spell it ASHAQZHYLY6. By the way, I just had laser surgery, and it looks like an eye chart. You've got a wonderful name. That'd be a good thing to name your kid, would it not? One of those eye chart, words, because like Elon, he was struggling with, I want to name my kid something completely different. And what he ended up doing was just arbitrarily hitting some keys, and that became the name. But I think the eye chart would also give you a wide range of unusual names.
Yeah, and then all the kids' teachers are going to call him Jim, or they're going to call him Bob, or something like that.
Well, Pete, you did a good job. That wasn't an actual Instagram comment. We threw that up there to test your eyesight.
Oh, is that what it was?
Oh, yeah.
I got to admit, you're not the only employee that's doing that. No matter which building I go into here, they realize I've had this, and they always ask me, okay, read us that chart or that flat screen across the room there, and they're pretty amazed. In fact, even Claude, I was in his office yesterday, he says, all right, Pete, what does that sign on the door across the street say? And I read it for him, and he was pretty impressed. He's thinking about getting the surgery.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. On Instagram, Eldera Montez 17 says hi from Mexico City.
Welcome.
Good morning. And then Wally J chimes in on the whole EV demand thing. He says it's because of the interest rates that things are slowing down. That's one of the things that we just talked about. I agree.
Yeah,
that's one of the factors.
And then, like you've always been saying, YouTube PYGKLB says, I suspect that there are going to be 2 groups, Tesla and BYD, which have no trouble selling all they make and then all the rest.
Yeah. I think eventually, because the market's big enough to support it, somebody else is going to come into the party, and they're going to get to where they can sell everything they make. I just don't know who that's going to be yet.
Could it be VinFast, who's going crazy in the stock market right now?
Well, you never know.
We're going to talk about that later, folks. The stock market right now loves VinFast, and we were joking, actually, because we've watched these IPOs take place now for, a couple, 3 years or so with these new EV startups.
Yeah.
And it's pretty predictable. You kind of see it, the huge increase during IPO, and then if you short the stock, you make a bunch of money as it's going down. Well, we were kind of joking about VinFast. Okay, it had this meteoric rise. Time to short it. Well, I'm glad I didn't, because it went up again. You were saying.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, we'll get into that one. But it's a bungee cord right now.
Yeah.
It's further evidence we are not investment professionals. Do not take our advice.
Oh, absolutely.
That's right.
We make all the mistakes. YouTube, Herbert Buder from Düsseldorf, Germany. Welcome back. He says government support and financial promotion programs have been cut down. In Europe, I'm assuming.
In Europe, I would assume that may be the case. Here in the States, not yet. The Inflation Reduction Act that the U.S. Congress passed and Biden signed into law has a lot of fat for people.
A lot of steam left. A lot of cheese, as one of our customers yesterday said, right?
There's a lot of cheese left for people to pick up on that. So.
YouTube, Richard Flenke says many EV buyers are in tech sector of stocks, and it's way down, and interest rates are way up. So you've got a double whammy.
Well, there is that as well. I would say that people who are in tech are going to be part of that early adopter because they understand what's going on, and it's not smarts versus not smarts; it's ignorance versus not ignorant, and there's a big difference. Golig Hadi on Instagram gives us several thumbs up, several roses. We encourage you guys, as one of our regular contributors says, Crunch to Grace Hopper. Smash that like.
Instagram, Trey Wayfar says, what do you think about Scotty Kilmer, the YouTube guy who always speaks negative about EVs? Is he just sour because we're still so early with EVs? Let me do an impersonation of Scotty Kilmer. You know that car? Well, I'm telling you right now, there's nothing wrong with that car, and if you buy this part, you're making a huge mistake. He's got different glasses than I do, too. You can kind of see through his. But he is an interesting YouTube character. He's probably capitalizing on the fact that when he says things like this, it creates a lot of controversy, which feeds his channel.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I can't imagine for a moment he believes any of this BS. And of course, if he's an ICE guy, he's going to feel threatened by this evolution and this disruption.
Oh yeah, absolutely he will. And that was a great impression, by the way.
Did you like that? All right.
On Facebook, Rich, your whisks. Sunglasses in a studio. Why?
Oh, that was the first sunglass question we've gotten in a few podcasts. You know, we are eventually going to do a reveal video, and it will explain what the reason that sunglasses are involved in the majority of Gruber productions, video productions. But we're not ready to do that yet. So in the meantime, we're just leaving all of that mystery in place.
Yes.
But what we are ready to reveal is these sunglass cases.
Okay, go for it.
We
Give us a sales
have
pitch.
got these wonderful sunglass cases made of
it
genuine
back.
hand leather.
Back by your face. Yep. A little bit closer.
That's our other social media guy. He's a perfectionist. I was okay with it being blurry. Go for it,
All
Richard.
right. So it's right next to my face. Should be in focus.
All right, you're in
Yes, nice,
focus.
clear.
These are available on the website. in the Gruber
Wait, I can read the lettering.
Oh,
You're in focus. All right,
Yep.
got it.
perfect. Now, if you go ahead and get these, don't forget to use code Richard.
Code Richard. Okay.
You can use code Aaron as well, right?
Yes, you can. AARON.
Oh, that's right.
It's easier to type, less letters.
And these guys did a video announcing these, and our Gruber Motor Company service writer was behind them, and they never realized that she was photobombing them the entire time. It's a good video to watch.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was great. When I saw her doing that, I was editing it. I was like, yep, we are going to go ahead and incorporate that.
The other thing, too, those codes, Aaron or Richard, either one, they actually give you a discount. That's an important part
That's right,
of
we
that.
left
That is
that
an
out.
important part, isn't
Yeah.
it? What is it? 100%
10%
off?
off.
10% off, yeah.
10% off. That's right.
On YouTube, Johnny Cruz has a comment for us. He says, imagine these little trailers that you could rent from a Texaco for a road trip, and you could use them while driving. These trailers would add 500 plus miles of range, and then you simply drop off at another local Texaco when you arrive. I see a need for this.
All right, there's a business opportunity for those of you listening.
Definitely is, and it's that's an intriguing prospect.
Mm-hmm. Crunch Grace the Hopper with YouTube is back with us. Thank you. Thumbs up. Number 7 from Newport 10 Beach, SoCal. Caught up soon. Boy, we've got a bunch of emojis there. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, like he says, smash that thumb, smash that like.
So you speak that language. My granddaughter's the only one that I know that can read that stuff.
I'm
You know?
learning.
Are you?
I'm learning.
A lot of YouTubers, when they're doing their videos, they get really aggressive with it or really over the top, like smash that like button.
Yeah.
It's just kind of become the thing for YouTube.
Very cool. Instagram, *_Joe says, appreciate the info. Thank you all the way from San Antonio, Texas. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Glad to have you on this morning.
So one of the news items I have here is they were interviewing Pete Rawlinson, the CEO of Lucid Motors. And in this interview, he says that he can see a $25,000 electric car in 4 years. Well, we immediately assumed, oh my God, Lucid's going to come out with a lower cost vehicle finally, because we think that's what's going to stimulate a lot more sales, right? Well, he goes on in this interview. He said that he doesn't want to be doing only wealthy people's cars. So that was a good thing. Again, you know,
Yep.
you need a broad range of product to appeal to a broad audience. He says that he understands that $169,000 Lucid Air Dream is out of reach for most people, and but it does have an unprecedented 520-mile driving range. Well, he thinks that this kind of efficiency and driving range could be eventually moved into these lower cost cars, which of course is going to be a huge benefit to sell these cars. He said the biggest challenge that he's always faced was getting money, not going bankrupt, and having investment as a startup to develop this. But then later on in this discussion, he points out that it most likely is not going to be a $25,000 Lucid. Instead, it will be other brands that are selling high-volume models with smaller, cheaper battery packs based on Lucid's design and efficiency breakthroughs. So it sounds like Lucid is going to continue to explore this relationship that they have with this other OEM. Help me with this.
Aston Martin.
Aston Martin, there you go.
Yep. I think that Lucid has some really good potential capabilities here. They have the engineering chops to be able to become a technology supplier for other manufacturers. I remember hearing about and even watching a little bit of the Sandy Munro teardown on the Lucid motor, and where he called it just an absolute engineering marvel. A motor that's about 1/3 the size of the Tesla motor and contains all the horsepower and capabilities of it as well. Same thing with their battery technology. They're getting 520 miles of range. If you have a Tesla, that's about a 250 kilowatt battery, and Lucid only has about a 130 kilowatt battery in their car for that kind of range. So, so there is that. But who's left? He talks about many companies that are going to approach Lucid about licensing of this technology.
Right. What he also says is, he says that there is a growing urgency across the industry, and many companies, he said, have approached them about potentially licensing their technology. He, of course, is not going to mention who those companies are,
Right.
Except for the one that was just publicly announced. But he says when pressed to name the car, the people that are coming to him, of course, he said it's a mix of companies, and he recognizes that they recognize that the train's going and leaving them at the station, and they don't want to be left out. So they don't have the time nor the resources to develop their own technology. So buying Lucid's technology and licensing it would be a quick way for them to enter the market.
It's a cool idea. I think I've always thought of Lucid as an automobile maker, not a parts maker. But there is something to the logic, and we've talked about this in the past. Why do you need to have a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger battery? Why not have a reasonable range? That 300-mile range is about what I'm thinking of as reasonable, and have a battery that's appropriate for that range. And simply, if you have better technology to get 300-mile range, now you have a lighter, cheaper car.
Right. And better performance because it's lighter.
Yeah, and it's a better performing car because it's lighter. And so I like where they're going with this overall. But again, I'm concerned because if you look at all the major automakers, Ford, Chrysler, General Motors, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, all 6 of those now have electric vehicle models out in the marketplace. The Asian people, the Kias and the Hyundais, they also have their own vehicles out in the marketplace already. If they have them out in the marketplace, that means that they develop their own tech without going to Lucid. So who's left?
Right. Good point.
Hopefully Lucid's able to get a partnership with one of these major companies, and then that would be a win-win, especially for Lucid.
A Tesla with a Lucid motor?
Oh my God.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That sounds like a Rich Rebuilds project, doesn't it?
Oh, no. Don't give him any ideas.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube, Highlander Apparel. He says, "Hi, guys. Watching while I'm having lunch and tea. P.S. I saw a third Tesla. It's gray." When my wife and I go anywhere nowadays, she's becoming even more annoying because she loves to point out Teslas now. Did I just say that? She watches me on Instagram, so I'm going to be in trouble when I get home. But, the amount of Teslas on the road today here in Phoenix is just unprecedented. And it's fundamentally because they're so easily recognizable. They don't change their body style. And,
Right.
And they are ubiquitous. They're everywhere these days. They're omnipresent.
Well, unless you are familiar with the different models of Tesla, to your point, a 2012 to 2014 Tesla Model S looks exactly like a 2023 Tesla Model S, unless you're familiar with the model and know the kind of refreshes that they've done. One of the more funny videos that I saw recently as I was looking up content was somebody talking about a Tesla nightmare, and they're going through a parking garage trying to find parking. Every single stall has a Tesla, either a Model 3 or a Model X or a Model S, and then somebody comes up and driving with one of their Dodge Chargers, and they get in the Dodge Charger and then take off.
Yeah. When you Tesla hasn't changed very much, including the little T on the front. When you see a car coming at you that's got a T, that's usually a Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Except for the early Roadsters. The first Roadsters, the 1.5 versions, actually had the Shield version. And then in the 2.0s, they went to the little T in the front. And that now is carried over to all the other platforms.
Oh, man. So that means if you can find yourself the Shield somehow and put it either on your S or on your Model 3 or your Model Y, you would just stand out from the crowd.
Well, for our audience, actually, we struggle with trying to find these original trim pieces because, again, you can't buy one of these from the vendor that used to make it because they have to set up their machinery and recreate it and all that.
Yeah.
There are Chinese versions out there that you can get off eBay and Amazon, but I warn you, they don't fit. We've been trying to get those for the Tesla Roadster, and although they look convincingly like the original Shield, the dimensions are off. But anyway, if you can live with that, you can find some of this stuff online. So YouTube, C&D user says, what are your thoughts on new battery tech? In essence, solid state batteries, could they get small enough for quick battery swaps? Well, there are two questions there, and we'll unpack them. My thoughts on new battery tech is it's wonderful. There is new technology coming along constantly. Look at Tesla's migration from 18650, 2170, 4680. And of course, you have other vendors, the graphene batteries, the lithium iron phosphate, the lithium sodium phosphate. It just goes on and on. With this much demand, innovation, of course, is just running overtime, and we're getting cool new technologies. I don't expect us to be carrying around 1,200 pounds of batteries in our cars within the next 5 to 10 years. I think that technology is going to be passé. It'll be unnecessary, and certainly not to the extent where they ignite.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think the balance of battery tech and mileage is going to tend toward lighter and cheaper batteries, as opposed to longer range.
Here comes the fusion.
Or fusion.
Gotta get that in there.
Now, the second part of that question, what about quick battery swaps? Well, companies have tried this. BYD, for example, they have their battery swap stations, and it was a smart implementation in that they made modular pods that could be craned into position, so you don't have the long, lengthy bricks and mortar effort with permitting processes and construction and general contractors and all that. However, it's a very inefficient way to replace the energy that you need in your car. And with rapid charging and the proliferation of charging stations all over the world, there was a statistics that I just saw how many additional chargers Tesla adds every week, and it was impressive. I don't remember what the number was.
I know last year, 2022, they went from about 25,000 to 50,000 plugs. And the number of charging locations also went up about 50%. So they doubled the number of plugs that they had available, and they increased the number of locations they had by 50%.
And although charging speeds are beginning to get capped somewhat by the amount of amperage that you can pump through a cable that you're going to physically pick up and plug in your car. There are other charging methods that are gaining momentum. The inductive charging, for example, comparable to what you can do with your cell phone. You lay it on a flat surface, and there's an inductive coupling that takes place that creates a charge. There's charging in the roadways, for example, that will give you a charge while you're driving. And then, of course, you have solar, and there are a number of improvements. So I think the battery swaps are going to be a temporary blip, kind of like the old VHS versus beta tape,
Yeah.
And but it'll be an interesting side note in history during or in the evolution of EVs.
I think it will as well. At some point, people go for ease of use or for speed, and where speed equals ease of use. I think we're going to get even beyond 800-volt charging stations, probably to 1,000-volt or 1,200-volt charging stations. When you have a solid-state battery that doesn't heat up like a lithium-ion battery, and you're pumping 1,200 volts in at 300 amps, the next thing you know, that's you have a battery that might be able to take a charge in 4 or 5 minutes.
Right. Similar to a gas station pump.
Now you're talking about gas station pump times, and people are used to that. Or you have somebody who has a house, drive into their garage, integrated into the garage floor as an inductive charging mat, and they don't even think about it. They don't care about how long it takes to charge because they have their car in a place for several hours typically, and they don't even have to plug in their car. They just get out and go, and they come back, and their car that was half full is now full of energy. It's going to be about ease of use. Going into a station where you might be oil change times, 10 to 30 minutes, and come out with a battery that might not be as good as the one that you went in with, there's
a problem.
There's an ownership issue there, at least here in the U.S. especially, that I think is going to be a problem.
Instagram *_Joe says, do you think the power grid can handle all the future charging stations? Our answer to that is we've got a video out there under Gruber Motors, and the thumbnail basically says that, is the grid overwhelmed, or can it handle it? And, the simple answer to that is, during this podcast, we did a lot of research for this video, and initially we were going to weigh in and say, yeah, we're in trouble. We're not going to be able to keep up. And what are they going to do? And let's report on that. It turns out that the utilities are doing a very good job of planning and creating additional infrastructure. And despite the proliferation of electric vehicles, we're not seeing those kinds of problems currently.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back a couple years, you remember it made the news that the state of Texas grid was overstressed, and people were getting power bills of $30,000 or $40,000 or $60,000 for a month's worth of electricity because Texas has a law in the books that forces electric companies to buy whatever electricity is on the spot market at spot market prices. And when the electricity went up to $1,000 per kilowatt hour, then the power company bought that electricity at $1,000 a kilowatt hour and sent it off to their people. This year, Texas has had demand records that exceeded those records from a couple years ago when they had all of these problems. Guess what we haven't heard of in the news?
What's that?
We haven't heard anything about Texas people getting $60,000 power bills. We haven't heard anything about the grid being stressed. They're keeping up and then some. And that's just one example. At least here in the United States, I do not think the power grid is going to be an issue as we go forward.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
I think the question was more centered towards the actual charging station itself, which mostly, I think since 2020, the Tesla charging stations are all on renewable energy. They're not even attached to the grid. And all the other ones, Elon Musk has stated that they're going to be taking them off of the grid soon. They just need to get there and redo those stations. So in terms of the actual charging station pulling from the grid, it's not a problem because they're not attached.
Good point, Aaron. Yes, in fact, one of our machine shops just across the street from us here is has been working on a renewable energy charging method using solar.
Yes.
And as this begins to gain ground, you're right, the demand on grid will actually be reduced. And, solar is basically free other than the hardware to get it. There's a good question or comment from Richard Flenke. He says, remember the Osbourne effect? When the computer company announced a better future model, no one bought the current offerings. A business lesson for Lucid.
I do. That's a great point. I actually had to look up the Osbourne effect, and it's Wikipedia says the Osbourne effect is a social phenomenon where customers cancel or defer orders for a current item based on the promise that there's going to be a new, better item coming out in the near-term future.
I have a perfect example of that, by the way.
Yeah.
When Tesla first announced the P90D Ludicrous, the whole Ludicrous concept, which was a 0 to 60 in 2.9 second car, grocery getter sedan, mind you, but still it was the fastest thing on the road. It was a very popular car, and it became the flagship of the Tesla lineup. What happened was a hacker in North Carolina, Jason Hughes, who was able to extract information from the existing Tesla MCU in firmware, found that a software developer, had left some sloppy notes in that firmware. He was able to decrypt, referencing a P100DL. Well, guess what happened?
Okay.
A lot of orders for P90D Ludicrouses went on hold, evaporated, because people now realized there was an even faster model coming out. And of course, Tesla did not intend to release that at the time that it was released from this hacker's efforts.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. And it is something, a phenomenon that tends to happen when there is a tremendous amount of movement and innovation in an industry. We've seen this for years in the technology industry. Years ago, I would salivate over the 27 gigabyte hard drive that Fry's Electronics would offer,
right.
But it was $600, and there's no way I could afford it. But I also knew that, if I can't afford it now, in 6 months, that $600 drive will be $200, and in a year, that $600 drive might be $60. So I'm just going to wait for a year. And then sure enough, in a year's time, but it wasn't the 27 gigabyte drive that I went and got. I got the 60 gigabyte drive because it was out by then.
Right.
And so that is definitely a real thing.
All right. YouTuber or YouTube Highlander Apparel says, good point, Richard. There you go, Richard.
Richard Flenke.
Oh, Richard Flenke. Okay, different Richard.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, both of you then. YouTube Crunch to Grace Hopper, back when VW muscled in CCS, exact opposite of the NACS design, NACS, in hopes of deterring EV adoption to buy them transition time, plus spite, then startup Tesla. They succeeded in spades, only on one.
On that particular one, the CCS standard was actually being developed while Tesla was still developing the Roadster, and shortly afterwards. Tesla wanted to have a standard that they wanted to conform to industry standards, but the people at the IEEE standards body were so slow in the review process that Tesla and Elon specifically got fed up with the process and said, we're not going to wait to put out our next model car for you to come up with some sort of standard.
Right.
We're going to go and just do our own thing. And that's where the Tesla Trident connector, that's now the NACS standard, came to be. I learned that when we were doing some research about the NACS standard and CCS standards recently, as people were going, as Ford and GM were coming on the NACS.
Interesting.
And why there were two standards.
All right, so
real quick, one other thing, the standards body, not the IEEE, but the other one, the SAE,
yes,
have announced this last week, I think, that they've chosen NACS to be the official standard for North America.
Excellent choice. Yes.
Yeah, and the SAE, which is the North American Society of Automotive Engineers, they have also fast-tracked Tesla's NACS standard, saying, what do we have to question? This standard, this type of charger has been out in the world for 10 years. Almost all of the questions that we would have about testing and reliability and safety have already been answered over 10 years of usage time. So there are very few things left for us to have to ask.
Good point.
On YouTube, D. Walthier says, I prefer a Porsche Taycan.
With a wink. All right.
Oh, what a beautiful car that one is.
YouTube, PYGKLB says, that's why my white Y has an orange stripe on the sides. He's referring to something that was said earlier, I believe.
I think it has to deal with the like the badging. When I said you could put the Tesla shield instead of the T.
Okay.
So yes. YouTube, Lightning Rod. Hello from Thunder Bay, and hello, Lightning Rod. Welcome.
YouTube, Highlander Apparel. Tesla Time News on YouTube. Zach and Jesse do an amazing job on a weekly update on all Tesla charger installs. P.S. Go ahead and say it. All right, guys.
Well, the Tesla Time News, that's one I have not heard of yet. That's one I'm definitely going to be looking up and watching.
Richard Flenke with YouTube says, 1200 volts, ? The wiring would be the size of a fire hose.
You know, Richard, actually, it's amperage, and Lightning Rod even says this. Not really. It depends on amps, not volts. He says, I've seen 18 gauge 600 volt wire.
Every time you double the voltage, the amperage goes inversely proportional. So you got half the amps for twice the voltage.
Right. And amperage is what equates to heat, and it's amperage that causes you to have larger wire.
Right.
Not voltage. I've heard it explained to me in more simplistic terms, since I'm not an electrician and kind of a novice electricity overall. Voltage is water pressure. Amperage is the size of the hose.
Yep.
And how much water you need to put through. So you can have lower water pressure and a larger hose. You could have higher water pressure and a smaller amount of smaller hose. And you end up with the same amount in the bucket at the end.
So, yeah, what we're saying is if you want to push through more power, more current, then you increase the pressure or the voltage.
Yes. Or you increase the size of the hose so you can handle more current if you need to have the pressure stay the same.
And the typical incentive for increasing voltage, like in critical power, is your switchgear, your wire gets smaller.
That's right, and that's why we've talked as well about Tesla wanting to move away from their low voltage systems being 12 volt systems and instead being 48 volt systems, because they can, in theory, reduce their wire sizes by 75%.
Yep. And Pete, back up on Highlander's question.
Yep. Go back.
You missed it. You got to say his slogan. He wanted you to say his slogan.
Oh, okay.
Remember what his slogan is? He always says it every.
Oh,
kindness is always free.
Kindness is still free. Yeah.
It is, yes. Thank you, Highlander Apparel. He's absolutely right. Let's see. YouTube, D. Walter says, rapid charging is the right approach. We're already at 270 kW and more with 800 volt EV cars. Maybe we're at 500 kW in a couple of years, but not inductive. Electric magnetic fields are not healthy. Of course, there's a whole school of thought here that even goes into the cell phone emissions, the RFI emissions that you get, or the electromagnetic type emissions, and what effect that has on the human body. You know who could help us with that? Artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah, they definitely could.
Because it can amass a number of data points, much, much larger than any human could, and, assemble all of those into a prognosis, basically.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing that you're talking about there. But D. Walthier is right. As far as 800 volt EVs, 500 kilowatts in a couple of years, I'm thinking Tesla has already announced in their mega chargers that they have 750 kilowatts to a megawatt. Right now, it charges just the Tesla semis. But if that technology already exists today, it's going to be coming down to the mass market automobiles probably within a couple years.
You know, one of the guys we had on our podcast, the Bearded Tesla, by the way, look up his YouTube channel. He's a real creative guy. And the other day I saw him post a short video out on TikTok or one of those platforms. And he said, here's what happens if you plug your Model 3 into a semi-charging station. And he had the cable and he started to do that. And the next thing you saw was a nuclear explosion. And you know what? He got all kinds of hits for that. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the views on that were off the chart. So you get a grade A for creativity on that one, Bearded Tesla.
You know, and the next question or comment is from Loco Parentis, where he says, clickbait title, why resort to this cheap tactic? Pete, you just answered his question.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for the compliment, though. He continues to say that you guys have plenty of real knowledge to share. And why the sunglasses?
Well, we attempt to make it entertaining, and we will have a release video, and that, of course, will generate some traffic as well. So, you know, and we do have to monetize this, guys. That's why we need you guys to subscribe. We need you to hit that, smash that like button. All of this expense that we have here in this studio, there are 5 of us down here right now, and we do this 5 times a week, actually 6 with me and Jesse coming in on a Sunday. It is not, we don't have return on investment yet, and we're still trying to push it to the point where we actually break even and then eventually begin to monetize this. And as soon as we monetize, by the way, I know what Jesse's going to say. I need more cameras. I need more of this. I need a bigger studio. And of course, all of it will get absorbed immediately, and the ROI goes away.
Well, there's one other thing, too, for the first part, clickbait title. If you scroll back to the beginning of the podcast on YouTube, you can watch the beginning. We went in depth on whether or not there are customers left for EVs. That wasn't necessarily clickbait. We've just already discussed that part.
Yeah, and it wasn't our masthead or our title. It was actually from a magazine article. So
yeah, in this case, it was from Insider Magazine,
we can't
an
take
online
credit.
magazine. So
I'll take the last part of that question though.
Go for it.
Why the sunglasses? Well, I'm glad you asked. So we've got these sunglass holders. They're made of they're handmade out of genuine leather. Rather perfect for holding all of your sunglasses.
Guys, what's he doing in
Perfect.
social media? He needs to go into sales.
Yeah, he's our ad guy.
$79.99 unless you use code Richard or Aaron.
There you
10%
go.
off.
Yeah. All right. Well, do we have some more news items here? There is Tesla is coming to Kyle, Texas. I had to look this up. Kyle is not too far outside of Austin, and it looks like an expansion move. The mayor, Travis Mitchell, the mayor of Kyle, Texas, is very happy about this, and he said that they want to attract more of this type of business. Tesla is actually going to lease 1 million square feet of space in Kyle, Texas. No one knows yet why or what they're going to do, but that will be a mystery until they announce what they're going to do with the space.
you know what? I like you. I had to look up, okay, where is this place, Kyle, Texas? And I found that it's probably just outside the realm of being a suburb of Austin, which is, of course, where Giga Texas is at. And it does also happen to be on the route between Giga Austin, Giga Texas, and the Monterey auto facility, that the Giga Mexico facility.
Mexico, yeah, good point.
So there is every chance that this is going to be some sort of either a storage or an in-process type of a working area. I think it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And, to get your head around 1 million square feet, I sometimes do the math here with our 7 buildings, and I think we've got like 78,000 square feet under roof in all of our commercial buildings.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing over 10 times that. So it's got to be a huge cavernous place or facility,
Well, yeah, and I mean, 1 million square feet is like 22 acres under roof. That's a big area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. More questions coming in. YouTube, Trucker Alistair says, good morning, guys, and those behind the camera. Greetings from New Brunswick. I just hope that one day the government will bring Chinese EVs like MG4 and other EVs into Canada. What is preventing that, do you think?
I don't know. The MG4 is a great little car. And I agree with you, Trucker. I think I'm hoping that the Canadian government will at least allow it, even if the U.S. doesn't. It might be less on the U.S. or Canadian governments and more on the Chinese manufacturer not wanting to worry about meeting all the stringent requirements that Canada and the U.S. have.
Yeah, well, I think you summarize it: stringent requirements, regulations, red tape, and some of which are obsolete at this point. There was a good reasons for putting them in place when they were created. But like Elon points out, these things tend to, they get a life of their own, and they never get removed.
Yeah, pretty soon the regulations exist in and of themselves, and you don't even realize why they're still there. YouTube, Ken Pappas says, EV cars are next generation cars. And like buying a personal computer, nobody in their right mind is going to buy an EV when you know better innovation is right around the corner. You don't want to buy old technology. Well, that is, again, a definition of the Osbourne effect.
Yeah. George is joining us. Good morning, guys. Thank you for joining. YouTube, PYGKLB, he says, regarding Texas, what we have been hearing is from Powerwall owners who are participating in the virtual power plant scheme and making money.
Yeah, I've heard that Tesla Electric is becoming more of a thing, especially in a place like Texas, where the electric utilities are unregulated. People who put power walls in place capture their generated energy during the cheaper parts of the day, morning to early afternoon, and then sell that electricity back to the grid in the evening when demand is highest, and they can actually earn money, get more money for the power that they're selling than it costs them to generate.
In the majority of states, though, I believe that it is not yet accepted or legal for you to sell power to your neighbor. I wonder if Texas is any different because I
don't know if Texas is different or not, but you're right. In most states, only the regulated utilities are allowed to sell power.
Yeah.
And that's why on my solar system, I get 2.9 cents per kilowatt when I sell back to my power company.
And if you sell to your neighbor, you get 5 times that.
Oh, of course. I could get 10 to 15 cents a kilowatt very easily.
All right. YouTube, let's see. Loco Parentis is back. He says, I'm the first person to wait for the next gen, but I pulled the trigger on a Gen 3 Tesla, knowing the Gen 4 sensor package is coming with likely better full self-driving performance, knowing how training takes place.
There's going to be a point where there's diminishing returns. We've seen this in technology. For example, we have laptops here that are a year old or 2 years old, both of us, Pete, and yet the laptop that my wife has at home is 4 years old. It's virtually identical to my 1-year-old laptop, both in terms of speed and features, and as well as just there's a couple of plugs on the side that are different. Otherwise, it's the same laptop, but hers is 4 years old. Now, mine has a faster chip, and it has a little faster video, and it has upgrades, but they're now incremental upgrades. They're not transformational. Eventually, electric vehicles are going to be like that, and that's the way you defeat the Osbourne effect, is that while there's new technology that continues to come out, the rate of innovation is perceived to slow down to the point that people are no longer willing to wait, or they're willing to say, you know what, this is good enough.
Right. Or you have someone like your neighbor that gets a different car every 6 months just because.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, or that.
Staying with that news item, apparently Elon, and this was in an overseas Chinese article, he says that Tesla will achieve full self-driving later this year. Now we're talking about full self-driving. He says that he's driving the current beta version, the latest self-driving beta version, and he says, I almost never need to touch the controls. So sounds like it's improving, and Elon trusts it, and he's actually using it without touching controls.
You know, that's a cool thing. I'm gonna very much anecdotally, just me. I have a 2017 Model S right now. It once it got its software update to the 2022 version, I don't like it as much as I like the old one. Why? Because I'll be driving down the freeway on autopilot. So I'll have the lane assist, I have the adaptive cruise control, and it'll be clear sailing. It's the middle of the day. There's no car in front of me for probably a mile. There's no car behind me for at least a quarter of a mile. And my car will suddenly slam on the brakes and go from highway speed to about 40 miles an hour. Why? I don't know. My wife hates it. She yells at me every time it happens.
It was that butterfly that flew across the front of your car.
Yeah, it was
or
that
something,
butterfly,
yeah.
or there's a strange shadow on the bridge,
Right,
or
yeah.
who knows? And then it speeds back up. Or we're still trying to nail down exactly what it is that causes that.
Quick fix on that, Mark. Keep your foot on the accelerator and just be ready for it when it starts to do that. Your foot on the accelerator will override that braking.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true. I'm usually not quick enough, Richard. So then I give my wife whiplash, or that's what she claims.
So other thing too, we want to make sure we let people know this is like a 6-year-old Tesla. It doesn't have the latest sensors or cameras. This is not indicative of like a new car.
Yeah, it's my personal experience. That's all it is. But I would love to see what true full self-driving looks like.
You know, speaking to Elon being a visionary, he talks about putting your car to work as a robo-taxi.
Yes.
So you go home, instead of parking it in the garage, you send that thing out there to collect some revenue for you and help make the car payment.
Yeah. At the same time, I've seen the cars that some of my family members drive and what kind of mess they leave behind.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you'd have to live with that.
I kind of have to live with that. The concept seems like a very intriguing concept, I have to admit. Highlander Apparel on YouTube has chimed in. He says, okay, I'll say it. Kindness is still free.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
It needs to be said every single podcast.
YouTube, Loco Parentis says the AI training will need tons of Gen 4 imagery and labeling, and then training, and then tuning. Just forget it.
YouTube, Dylan Semarao says, great topic. Hope you guys are having a great day. What's this $25,000 EV? That was earlier when we talked about Pete Rawlinson's interview, and he was talking about a $25,000 electric vehicle being available within the next 4 years. We assumed, of course, that it was going to be a Lucid, but as it turns out, the article really hinted that it may not, or most likely will not be a Lucid. It will be some other manufacturer that is proficient in creating low-cost EVs using their technology, and they would license it. And there will be other manufacturers, he felt, that may take advantage of their advanced technological skills and use their drivetrains.
Again, overall, I love the idea. You know, another thing that made me think of with Lucid, they would have to be licensing that technology at a low enough price for the car to still remain at $25,000.
Yeah, good point.
That's kind of cool. On TikTok, Pooh Ton says, thank you.
Well, you're more than welcome. Instagram, Balvir_Singh_Mond. Do you think alternative battery technology such as graphene will take hold in the future versus what we are using now? It's already in play currently. A lot of companies have been working on the other battery technologies. I know I've told this story before, but we were approached by a graphene battery manufacturer that said, guys, we understand that you guys work in the Tesla world. You have test mules, you service them, you understand the technology. If we give you graphene pouches, will you be able to insert them into a Tesla Model S battery tub and prove that graphene can propel a Tesla vehicle? We signed up, and it turns out that because of some engineering problems, we were unable to do so without great expense. So we scrubbed that project temporarily. It had to do with the physical size of the pouches, and we couldn't
Right.
find any other place to put them in the car, and the number that we needed, and then also integration. It's not just plug and play like some of the older technologies. These EVs are computers on wheels. They're smart. There's firmware. Everything is reporting to firmware, and so you can't just simply put a different device in the car without having it aligned and recognized in firmware, and that requires some coding and some software changes. But yeah, that effort is well underway with many different companies, probably in secret labs, some of it, because they don't want to give away their intellectual property. But there's a strong need for improving the current DC storage in electric vehicles. Again, the absurdity of carrying 1,200 pounds around with you because you need DC storage is just absurd, and it will improve.
On Instagram, AZEV King says, just joined at 10:50. Do you have any updates on the Barnyard find Roadsters?
We do. We just got a call yesterday, by the way, from the sellers. It turns out that the ship with the 3 cars on the ocean currently was delayed off the coast of Vietnam because they were anticipating this hurricane tropical storm and didn't really think that they would be allowed to unload at Long Beach, California. So the new date for arrival in Long Beach is September 5th. And we're also now thinking that with the backup, which most likely was created by this tropical storm, even if they arrive September 5th, they're not going to be first in line to get unloaded. So we're probably looking at the middle of September at this point. But the good news is the cars are on the ocean. They're headed this way, and they will be coming to Phoenix before too long. And we'll keep you updated. I need to update the current Roadster matchmaking site with this information that I just gave, and we'll take care of that today, so you guys can go there and get your updates in that Roadster for sale listing.
Yes. YouTube, Crunch to Grace Hopper asks, or in this case mentions, recently X posted a pic, X being Twitter, posted a pic of a Tesla check reimbursing the first ERCOT payment for V2G virtual grid enabled. Now, ERCOT is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. So there's a Tesla check that reimburses that first payment for vehicle to grid enabled Tesla OTAU, and I'm not sure what OTAU stands for right yet.
Well, that's unusual because I have trouble with the acronyms.
That's
and
over-the-air
media.
updates.
Over-the-air updates. Okay, there's
Okay,
Jesse. All right.
okay. So first vehicle to grid enabled via Tesla over-the-air updates. All Texas Powerwall orders are instantly Osbourne.
Okay.
Sure. Why would you want to get a Powerwall if you can just get the same thing
It's in your car.
with a Tesla car that has a vehicle to grid?
Okay, and these next two are related to each other, so
Yeah, hello.
this is a challenging topic I think we could address.
I think so too. First comment is from Carl Kakak. Welcome and good morning. Glad you joined. He says, poor slave children, mine the cobalt. A kid digs for 3 days to hand mine enough cobalt for your battery. They get 30 cents for it. Keep it petrol, people. And then the follow-up from one hungry Clippo, somebody who has contributed before.
Mhm.
Again, good morning and thank you for joining. He says, the same cobalt is in the cell phone or computer that you use to post this. Actually, more cobalt from the Congo goes to normal electronics than EVs, and Tesla is phasing it out completely soon.
Right.
That's a good comment back. And this goes back to the battery technology we were just talking about. We know that battery technology is changing. It's faster than evolving. It's there's a tremendous amount of innovation going on. We've talked in the past about potassium ion, sodium ion batteries, a mix of different types of of salts, because it's, the lithium ion is really a lithium salt or a sodium salt that's the electrolyte. There's also a lot of talk about silicone now becoming the anode instead of nickel or cobalt. So the low cobalt batteries. The one thing that I think of when Carl says keep it petrol, people, what about the environmental impact of all of the oil mining or the oil drilling that goes on in our environment?
Well, there's another ingredient here, which is the recycling of batteries, the current batteries, lithium iron phosphate. The recycling for small items like laptops and cell phones, those are more likely to end up in landfills than a large 1,200-pound EV battery pack. So let's go on record and say that. Now, what happens to that 1,200-pound battery pack once it's been created? There are companies like Redwood Material, J.B. Stroll's company, where they take these packs, even the cell phones and laptops, by the way.
Yes.
But these large packs are considered 100% ore, high-grade ore. In other words, you no longer have to mine it. You don't have to transport it from Africa to the U.S. to be processed in a plant and use electricity and heat to melt down the metals and all that. This is high-grade ore, and it gets recycled with a 0% waste stream, and it goes back into electric vehicles. So that sounds a whole lot cleaner to me than a fossil fuel burning car where you're putting carbon in the air. You're not recycling anything. You're damaging the environment.
Right. None of the fuel for that car is going to be recyclable. Although, regular ICE cars, due to things like junkyards, they have sometimes upwards of 80 to 90% recycling on the aluminum and steel and stuff like that.
The metals.
The metals. But what we're talking about is the energy structure. All of the recycling that you get with ICE vehicles, you get with electric vehicles.
Right.
Plus the recycling of the lithium batteries. Redwood Materials, we've learned, is not the only game in town. There are other places that are as large as, if not larger than, Redwood Materials that do recycling as well.
And then, like Tesla is also getting into the recycling business, and in that case, the recycling facilities are going to be next to the production facilities, so your supply chain is infinitely smaller and faster.
Yeah. So I want to go on record. I agree. We don't want to have children mining cobalt. Right. That's not at all where we're going. But I disagree that keeping it as gas or fossil fuel powered is the solution. We need to find other, more environmentally sustainable solutions for the battery technologies.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
So Tesla has a program where they source out more ethical mining practices that doesn't use child labor. And also, too, a lot of their new drivetrains don't have any rare earth metals in them anymore. They went back to that. So they first started with no rare earth, then started to incorporate it, and then now they've gone back to no rare earth. This is all in the impact report of 2022 that just came out a couple months ago.
To Carl Kakak's point, though, like Mark was saying, no one wants to see children involved getting 30 cents an hour and working in a hazardous environment or child labor, to begin with. That's why the unions were created. Now, we don't want to get on the union discussion here because it was very provocative in, I think, a few podcasts ago. But that was one of the benefits of unionizing was that things like child labor became illegal and went away.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, and in those 16-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week work schedules, that were very literally killing people. Not good things. Instagram, J Higgins 623. What is your opinion about Rivian, Neo?
Well, Rivian, by the way, we've got a service facility not too far from us here, and we see some on the road. And of course, Neo is a Chinese company. It's one I invest in, by the way. It does well, then it does poorly, and I think it's not doing great right now. But I personally am very much in favor of any company that engages in creating sustainable transportation. I hope they all make it, and I hope they can get their cash burn under control and become successful, profitable, and continue to pump out great product that help heal this planet.
For me, again, I'll put that caveat out there. I own a little bit of Rivian stock. I don't own any NIO stock. Like you, I hope they're both successful. I think Rivian, in my opinion, because they have that 100,000 van order from Amazon to supply electric vans, both in Europe and in the United States, that Rivian has a great chance for future success. Some of their most recent news also seems to be very positive. Sales of the Rivian pickup truck and especially their SUV are starting to pick up. So the future seems to look pretty bright for Rivian. They seem to be closer to profitability than just about anybody else outside of Tesla, and that what I would call the B tier of EV makers, Rivian, Lucid. Ford is going to be in that B tier. Rivian seems to be turning the corner and has a better chance to get to profitability than some of the others.
Great news.
Yeah, and so, but there's my opinions here. I think they're not investment advice.
So YouTube, Richard Flinke says, I heard a rumor that insurance companies will give lower rates to full self-driving auto owners. You know, it's I'm not surprised, Richard, because the insurance business is about risk management. And once we get full self-driving, there are going to be a lot of improvements. We'll have far less accidents. Auto body shops may go away eventually. Fundamentally, AI and machines are much better drivers than human beings. They don't suffer from the same failings that humans do. They don't need to put on makeup, for example, while they're driving. They're not going to get a call and answer their cell phone and take their eyes off the road.
Right.
They're not going to get inebriated and be impaired while they're driving. I mean, the list just goes on and on. The kids in the back, they're not going to turn around and, yell at them while they're driving. I'm looking forward to the day that we have great drivers out on the road, and I think that's going to be full self-driving and the machines doing that themselves.
I look forward to seeing that because overall I think it's going to improve traffic safety. And at some point, I think it will not only improve traffic safety, it'll improve traffic flow. And you're going to see people be able to get from point A to point B more quickly because they have a car that is able to drive itself there. And I truly think that you're going to end up with cars that can communicate with one another as well. And so, you think about it, if you have three cars that are driving together down the street, and one of the cars is going to make a turn in 3 blocks, the other 2 cars already know that that first car is going to be turning in 3 blocks. They'll move out of the way and just continue going long before that car starts to make its turn.
You know, something else just occurred to me. There are going to be a couple other improvements, I think, and it may take some time, but can you imagine fewer insurance companies and fewer attorneys?
I can.
Now, that's a bright world, isn't it?
That's a much brighter world. Yes. On Instagram, Mustafa SJJ says, hi from Berlin. Good morning.
Oh, Berlin, Germany, yes.
Good evening for you, actually.
Near the Gigafactory.
Yes.
YouTuber Highlander Apparel says, regarding the CIA website, I mentioned last week, it's no longer CIA fun facts. I'm confident your video team will be able to find it.
Well, that sounds like a challenge for our video team, Richard and Aaron.
You know, I did try to find it.
Did you? What happened?
I did not look at anything. So maybe if I could have a little hint. I don't even know what we would be looking for, to be honest with you. Something about fun facts of the CIA. No facts about the CIA seem like they're going to be fun.
Right.
So, there's a little spice on that word. So I don't know what to look for, to be honest.
Okay.
We'll have to try to look.
Well, you got my curiosity up now. I know what I'm doing when I go back upstairs.
Yeah.
YouTube, Martin Ösland says, your Tesla has too many horses. Horses are afraid of everything. Okay.
In regard to the phantom braking.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes. And then Wayne Levitt says that phantom braking is happening on new Teslas. Ask Ellie in space. You know, maybe the next time we talk to Ellie, we will ask her that. Maybe she's seeing that on her Model 3 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Flenke. Oh, we got to get into the article for this one. He says VinFast is up over $5 since the show started.
Why didn't you guys tell us to buy it last week? Who knew? You know, we've often talked about this. We're too tiny now to affect markets. But as this thing grows, I can foresee us actually moving markets. And then we're going to have to be very careful because the SEC frowns upon this type of market manipulation. In other words, you can't take any positions in stock that we are going to talk about during our podcast before the stock.
Well, right, because if Richard had really taken our comments to heart on Tuesday when the price was at $17 and it was falling, he would have tried to short it at $17.
Right.
And if it's up $5, that means as of 9:30 or half hour before showtime here, it was at $45. That means it's up above 50. He would have lost a lot of money.
Right. So that proves we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to finances.
Absolutely.
Instagram, Mustava.sjj says, I hope Elon is going to build a new Tesla Roadster in Berlin, too. That would be great. Yeah. We don't know where the second-generation Roadster is going to be built, but it's a pretty sure bet that's going to be close to Fremont, or at least their home office here. Europe, I think Giga Berlin was designed to feed the Euro market with the popular cars, not the niche cars. YouTube, Martin Ösland says, cobalt is used as a catalyst in fuel refineries. Good point. Yeah, there are broad uses for cobalt, no doubt about it. YouTube Lightning Rod, he said, give me the garbage.
Yes, and then Martin Ösland, stop buying fuel. There we go.
YouTube, Mostava El Gamel says, Elon promised in the last investor meeting to live install cameras in these mining fields for transparency. Somebody needs to follow up on that promise. It sounds like, according to Aaron, that Tesla may not be using those types of mines anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the case. YouTube, George has a comment for us. He says, you guys have a lithium battery recycler company right by you in Phoenix, correct?
Not that I know of. I don't know.
I think we do.
We do. I think in Chandler, there's a lithium.
Li-Cycle has a branch out there, I think. I was just looking at that this morning. Yeah.
You know, we get asked every few months, we'd like to do your battery recycling for you. And honestly, we don't have any batteries to recycle, at least not lithium ion. The lead acid batteries, yes, they go to a refinery.
Yeah.
But our lithium ion, we do not replace lithium ion battery packs like in the Roadster.
Correct.
When we do repairs, we usually buy those in the open market from the actual modules.
Yeah.
And I think at this point we've been saving our modules, and sometimes they get repurposed. The solar guys buy them, the golf cart guys buy them, and they don't need, if it's got a bad brick, they can still use it, in other words. It's still usable.
Right. To them, a bad brick is nothing because they only need 18 volts anyway, or if they get two modules, they might need 30 volts or 36 volts.
And if it gets closer to 12 volts, that's even better because that's the battery that it replaced. So you get a few bricks out of that. You know, one thing that I didn't mention earlier, speaking again about EV battery recycling being far more responsible. There is a company, we talked about them in one of the last podcasts. They actually take the 1,200-pound Model S, Model X battery packs. They put them into the equivalent of a 20-foot sea container with thermal management, with air conditioning, and they create the equivalent of a power wall for a storing energy. So they're actually continuing to use battery packs that wouldn't function in cars properly, but are able to store energy for this application. So there's another form of recycling, and they're actually extending the life of these packs by doing that.
Right, because these packs and these solar applications are not getting the kind of really intense usage that they get in automotive applications. And I would dare say that they're like mega packs is more like the equivalent, which is the two I want to, and it's not terawatt hour, but it's yeah, it actually might be, because you
Is
have
it? Yeah.
you have instead of, they've got megawatts, I mean, not terawatts, megawatts, because you've got 20 batteries together, and each battery has probably an average of about 80 kilowatts. So now you're talking about 1.6 megawatts of energy
I see. Yeah.
in stationary application, all sitting in a 20-foot container. And it's all a big solar field is feeding those batteries all throughout the day. And then overnight they start to discharge.
Acres and acres of solar panels.
Yeah.
YouTube, Highlander Apparel. He says that Ellie's podcast was so funny, was too funny. She was here. She's a character. She comes from the social media world. She was a news reporter, I believe, or an anchor woman. I forget which now, but she has a very effervescent, bubbly personality. And yeah, she's a party as soon as she gets here.
Yeah, it was fun meeting her. Trucker Alistair on YouTube says, 2017, I picked up an MB Vito van from Bremerhaven to drive to Austria with the new gizmos and security on board, driving 120 kilometers an hour, which is about 70 miles an hour, without notice, locked 4 brakes.
Oh,
Man.
But he kept it on the road. Yeah, he says, wow. Yeah, that's everybody's worst nightmare.
What a story wow. Oh.
Yeah. When you mentioned Bremerhaven, trucker, that was the port when I was 8 years old that my mother went to put us on a ship to bring us to the United States. I still remember that, even as an 8-year-old.
Wow.
And back then, if you could afford an airplane, they were prop planes. This was 1959.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, we were on a boat and got seasick, and that was no fun at all. Instagram, j.higgins623. Thank you guys, or you're more than welcome. Instagram, Nestanatron20 says, excuse me, can you guys share any resources or plans for EV service training? We get asked this, of course, all the time. Our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, has a number of educational videos. They weren't planned to be that, and we are going to be working on tutorial videos. For example, how do you remove a battery out of a Tesla Model S, and we'll take you through the entire process. What we currently have out there is a number of short topics combined into a video that address these types of things. And what we find is people that are interested in getting into the EV space find those videos to be of tremendous value, because we're not too worried about not sharing proprietary information. A lot of what we do regarding battery removal and finding the problem in them is not proprietary. Only one is, and that's the Roadster resistive cell isolation.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of it, I would suggest you go out to our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, and we've got 600 videos out there now, guys.
Something like that. Something insane.
And yeah, I'm sure you'll find a lot of useful information that will help guide you in doing EV repair.
On Instagram, Nestanatron20 says, can you guys share any resources? Oh, we went through that one already.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hernan Mendoza on YouTube. Hi, sir. What happened to Lucid stock price? Every day it goes down and down and down and down.
I didn't know it was going down, but it sounds like I need to go buy some when I get back upstairs.
I know that the Lucid stock price has been had gone fairly low. It's been sitting around that low $6 range, $6 to $6.20. I think what has happened in the past has been that Lucid, even though they quote unquote beat expectations, they still lost nearly $750 million in the last quarter. And the people are concerned, at least that's what the analysts say, that there's some concern about Lucid and their ability to drive demand because their sales have been flat.
Okay.
So that is my speculation only as far as why Tesla or Lucid stock may have gone down. I think there is going to Lucid's a startup company, so you're going to see a lot of volatility in the stock as well.
Yeah, go watch our video.
Our video, exactly. Yes, there are some compelling reasons why Lucid is undervalued. But let me read you something else. This was actually one of our news items here today. We have a healthy respect for artificial intelligence. That's one of the reasons Jesse and I come in on the weekends and Sunday mornings at 10. We chase down rabbit holes talking about AI, its implementation, the hysteria surrounding it, whether the robots are really going to kill the humans, and all of that. But anyway, there is an algorithm, and that term has taken on a whole new meaning with AI. People have a healthy respect for algorithms these days because that's basically what drives AI, coding. There is an algorithm that was produced by Coin Codex that apparently forecasts a rise in Lucid stock. Now, again, this is not investment advice. We're reading you what we found in an article. They say that over the next 3 months, that Lucid stock will come close to breaking to $20 by October. After that, there will be a massive price spike in Q4 of 2023, and it will retrace the sub 50 level. Go in here, and it will eventually end up at $47 in the next 12 months, which is a 679% increase compared to current price levels. Now, this is an algorithm that is forecasting this. Jesse, can you bring up a graph? I actually have that out there. It's called Lucid Stock Forecast Chart. And you can see the trajectory that this algorithm predicts. Now, again, the question is going to be, do you want to make a decision based on a computer algorithm, or would you rather listen to us?
Yeah, exactly. I actually found that Coin Codex.
Richard was going to point.
Go
he
ahead,
was going to chime in there.
I was going to say, listening to us, please don't. We are not financial advisors. This is not financial advice. Do not just do what we're going to do. Do your own research, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, we're
not our
speculators.
responsibility.
Yeah, we are purely speculators. But
so Coin Codex, I did find that article, Pete.
okay.
To me, I asked the question, why? Why would Coin Codex come up with these types of things? Well, Peter,
what does it know is what you were really asking.
What does it know?
Yeah, okay.
What it knows is that Peter Rawlinson has gone on record saying that the price cuts that Lucid did earlier this year have been successful. They've been well received. And he says, well, he's not sharing numbers. He says sales are up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They also are taking into account the Gravity SUV and the likelihood that it is going to be a hit with buyers. The Gravity SUV is going to come in around $100,000 or so as a starting price and go up from there. But that is right in line with other luxury car manufacturer SUVs, both in the ICE vehicle space and in the electric vehicle space. So it's making those two assumptions. If the Gravity SUV is a hit with buyers and sales do increase at the end of the third quarter, okay, I could see why it would project that. However, if sales don't increase, if they have another quarter of flat sales, if the Gravity SUV is delayed, or if the Gravity SUV does come out but isn't a hit like they think it's going to be, then all bets are off.
All bets are off, yeah. Okay.
Well, Mark, can you give us a little hint from your video? What did you say the size of the market is for that SUV? It's huge, right?
Oh, yeah. The size of the market for sport utility vehicles as opposed to luxury four-door sedans is massive. The luxury four-door sedan market was about $15 billion in 2022. The luxury SUV or crossover SUV market was about $305 billion. That's a roughly 20 times larger market. So the chances that Lucid has of having a hit on their hands just based on market size are better than the chances that they have had with the Lucid Air.
Even after your video, one of the things that impressed me the most was the amount of institutional investors that hold Lucid stock. It's not the day traders like you and I. It's the professionals that have, financial They have financial analysts on staff that can really dig deep into these issues. But not only did they continue to hold the shares, but they actually bought more even after their recapitalization. And then in the last podcast, we reported that Bank of America has now reportedly taken more positions in Lucid. And it just seems that when you get these large institutional investors interested in a stock like this, it probably corroborates the fact that it's undervalued and something's up.
Yeah, and that's my thought too. Is something's probably up if the Bank of America institutional investment fund is increasing their position in Lucid by over 600%.
Yeah.
And that was just that's pretty amazing.
Now, I do have a quick little tidbit from when I worked at Vanguard. So I worked in the institutional investor group, and what I would do is I was a master of mutual funds, and there were funds for value funds, undervalued companies, growth funds for companies that whomever expects to grow. I would go into those and see what companies were expected to grow, because Bank of America could be buying Lucid because they expect it to grow, or because they expect that it's undervalued, or both, right? So I'd be interested to see what mutual funds are picking up Lucid. That could show you what the expectation in the market is.
So it looks like we have broader financial expertise or experience, I should say, in this group. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
We should probably clear a few questions. We've run an hour and a half. We're coming to the close on this particular podcast, but YouTube C&D user says, any manufacturing we can bring back to North America, the better. I like the thought that all of my EV juice is made in my town at the local plant and not overseas. Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. On YouTube, Trucker Alistair says, had to take an invisible cigarette after that.
YouTube, Wayne Levitt. Cobalt is burned to remove sulfur from petroleum. This was causing acid rain in the 70s, causing many health issues, especially around London, killing forests and depleting minerals from our soil.
That is very true. Very true. The cobalt has been used and is being used to help the environment. YouTube, Hernan Mendoza, I appreciate and thank you, and more power, both of you. Well, thank you very much.
George is back. He says, just ask AI what stock to buy. I haven't done that. That's probably a good idea. Just for a laugh.
I did something like that. How to get huge returns on passive investments. The short answer: work more.
Good one. Yeah. You probably got through a bunch of caveats and disclaimers before you got to that point.
Yeah.
These days. Richard Flenke says, NVIDIA was up $75 today. I was, my son is in that, and I've been watching that thing take off. And, it's one of those things where you either jump in, because your fear of missing out, or you hold back, think, well, it's going to pull back. It can't continue to go. And as it rises, it gets more and more frustrating.
And NVIDIA, they were one of the winners of the cryptocurrency mining that took place over the last several years. Now, a lot of the crypto mining has pulled back. It's kind of a long explanation, but the bottom line is all of a sudden you have all these video cards that are available from NVIDIA and from AMD and so on and so forth. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, you would expect the stock to go down. Their sales have fallen because miners don't really buy the video cards anymore. And so I'm wondering, scratching my head, why is NVIDIA going up?
Right.
It's about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, they're powering the AI revolution.
The same chips that used to power the Bitcoin mining and solving these complex math problems are being used for artificial intelligence.
Good point. Yeah.
And so NVIDIA is taking off, and I wish I'd have known that 8 months ago or something like that.
All of us wish, yes. George says, thanks, guys. 2 thumbs up. We're getting to the end of our podcast here this morning. We really appreciate all of you joining us. It's more fun every time, it seems like, and we're getting a great audience here. This is Thursday. Our next podcast is tomorrow, not ours, but Gruber Power Services. And this is an interesting one that you may find informative. They are actually putting together a video for tomorrow, and we're going live on site to show what our critical power field engineers actually do in the field at a tunnel out in eastern Arizona here, where we have an uninterruptible power system that's keeping the power running for the lights in the tunnel. And you're going to be able to see not only a scenic portion of Arizona where this tunnel is. ADOT shut down half of the tunnel, but you'll get to see inside the equipment room and what type of equipment we work on.
I'm looking forward to watching that and seeing it. And yeah, I encourage you guys, watch Claude and Elvis. They're great hosts.
Yep. And by the way, that YouTube channel is different than this one. That is Gruber Power Services.
And I will be there tomorrow. I went on site with the guys and went ahead and filmed everything. So I'll be there giving a rundown on the things that were happening from a film perspective as well.
Outstanding. Well, thank you.
Fantastic.
So, and then Sunday, it's going to be Jesse and I chasing down rabbit holes talking about AI. And hopefully we'll see you next week. And again, thank you for joining us.
Take care.